Ever find yourself lying in bed like I do sometimes, totally wanting to shut off your brain? But instead, you're stuck replaying that super awkward conversation from like forever ago.
Oh, yeah.
Or you just know that everything is going to totally go wrong tomorrow and there's nothing you can do about it.
Absolutely familiar with that feeling.
And it's not always those big things either, right? Like, think about when you send a text and then dot crickets.
Ugh, the worst.
You know, that little blue tick just sits there mocking you.
Mocking is the right word.
You're not just waiting for a response anymore. You're building this whole story in your head about why they haven't texted back.
Right. And it's never a good story.
Never. It's always something catastrophic.
It's like our minds are wired for disaster.
Seriously. So we've all been there, and that's exactly what we're diving into today in this deep dive.
We're tackling the big one.
The big one. How to stop overthinking. Because if you're anything like me, overthinking just isn't mentally draining. It's like a hamster wheel. You're putting in all this effort, all this mental energy, but you're not actually getting anywhere, are you?
It's exhausting. You're going through all the motions, but there's no real progress, no sense of resolution.
Exactly. So that's where this deep dive comes in today. We're going to explore some really practical and hopefully insightful ways to quiet that overactive brain and regain a sense of control over your thoughts.
I like it. It's about giving you the tools to manage that mental chatter that can sometimes feel completely overwhelming.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to give you some actionable strategies so you can relax and manage that mental chatter.
We all need a little more peace and quiet up there.
For sure. Okay, so to get us started, I was listening to the English Leap podcast the other day, and they had this really interesting analogy about overthinking.
Oh, I'm intrigued. I love a good analogy.
Me too. So picture this. It's a beautiful breezy day, and there's a child flying a kite. The kite is soaring high, dancing in the sky, and the child's just holding the string, making little adjustments to keep it balanced. It's perfect,
Idyllic kite flying scene. I can see it.
Total bliss. But then, the string gets tangled.
Uh-oh, here comes the overthinking.
Right. And what's the child's immediate reaction? They panic, right?
Oh, yeah, every time.
They start yanking on the string, pulling harder and faster, trying to fix it, like right now.
Force isn't always the answer.
Definitely not in this case. And of course, what happens? The knots just get tighter and more complicated. The kite starts to wobble then. Crash down it comes. Gone is the joy, replaced by total frustration.
Whew, that's a painful image. And it's such a good metaphor for how our initial reaction to a problem can actually make it worse.
It's like we make it harder on ourselves.
Right. We try to force a solution instead of taking a moment to assess the situation.
Exactly. Now imagine if that child, instead of freaking out, had just paused for a second, taken a deep breath, and gently, patiently started to work through those knots one at a time.
Oh, much calmer approach.
Right. The kite would probably be back up in the air in no time, flying gracefully, like before.
Patience wins the day.
It really does. And our thoughts are so much like that kite string. When we let them flow naturally, they can lift us up, inspire us, guide us.
They can take us to amazing places.
They really can. But when we overthink, when we grip those thoughts too tightly and start pulling and twisting them in a frenzy of worry and analysis.
Like we strangle the joy out of them.
It's true. They get tangled up in all those anxieties and what ifs, and they end up pulling us down instead of lifting us up.
We get stuck in that downward spiral.
Yeah, and overthinking keeps us stuck in this knot of rumination, and it makes it so hard to move forward.
We lose our clarity and direction.
Exactly. But just like that kid with the kite, we can learn to untangle our minds.
We can learn to be more gentle with our thoughts.
And sometimes the first step is simply letting go of that tight grip.
Sometimes you just got to loosen the reins a little bit.
Absolutely. Now, here's another way to think about this. Imagine ocean waves.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Life, is like the ocean. It's constantly throwing unpredictable things at us, much like the wind and the waves.
We're always at the mercy of the element.
We really are. We face challenges, uncertainties, decisions. They're always coming at us in different shapes and sizes.
Life keeps us on our toes.
And it's totally natural and healthy to think about these things.
We have to process and adapt.
For sure. But overthinking, that's when we start to dwell on them way too much, trying to predict and control every single ripple, every single outcome.
We become obsessed with controlling the uncontrollable.
And the harder we try to control it, the more turbulent our internal state becomes and our thoughts just spin out of control.
It's like a runaway train.
Totally. There's a saying that goes, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf.
Ooh, I like that one.
Right. Our minds are like that vast ocean, constantly generating waves in the form of thoughts, emotions, doubts, hopes.
Some waves are gentle, Some are huge and powerful.
So true. Some are easy to ride. Others feel like they might knock us off our board completely.
And overthinking is like trying to build a dam to stop all the waves.
It's like we're fighting against the natural flow of our own minds.
A losing battle.
Totally, because the waves are a natural part of life, both internal and external. We can't stop them from coming.
So we got to learn to ride them.
Exactly. We can develop the skills to navigate them with more ease and less resistance.
It's about becoming a skilled surfer.
It really is. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people think overthinking is a good thing.
Really?
Yeah. They see it as being careful, thorough, you know?
I can see that. They might think, I'm not overthinking, I'm just being super prepared.
Exactly. But let's be honest. Overthinking is rarely productive in the long run. It might feel like you're solving problems, but most of the time, it just keeps you stuck.
Stuck in a loop of worry and doubt.
Exactly. It's like spinning your wheels in mud. Lots of activity, but no forward movement.
I get that. It's like you're working hard, but not getting anywhere.
Exactly. Think about it like this. You're trying to solve a jigsaw puzzle. You've got all the pieces, but you're fixated on just a few, trying to force them to fit, even though they obviously don't.
You're missing the bigger picture.
Totally. Overthinking keeps you focused on that small area, and you don't step back and try new possibilities with the other pieces.
So we need to zoom out and see the whole puzzle.
Exactly. So if overthinking is so unhelpful, why do we do it? Why do we get caught in these cycles? Well, the root cause often boils down to fear.
Fear makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a powerful motivator.
It is. It can be fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown.
All those what ifs.
All those what ifs. But here's the thing, and it's kind of a paradox. Overthinking doesn't protect us from those fears.
It often makes them worse.
It actually amplifies them. It's like trying to shield yourself from a downpour with a colander instead of an umbrella.
Okay, that's a great visual.
The more you try, the more soaked you get. The more you overthink potential negative outcomes, the more anxious and overwhelmed you feel.
So it's a self-defeating cycle.
Totally. And that brings us to the idea of letting go. Now, I don't mean giving up or ignoring problems. It's not about sticking your head in the sand.
It's not about being passive.
Right. It's about accepting that we can't control every single thing, and that's okay.
It's about surrendering to what is.
Exactly. Here's another analogy. Imagine a jar filled with muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the water just stays cloudy and murky, right?
You can't see through it.
You can't see anything. But if you set that jar down and let it rest, what happens?
The mud settles and the water clears.
Exactly. Our minds work in a similar way. When we constantly churn our thoughts with overthinking, our mental state is cloudy and unclear.
We get muddled.
We do. But when we pause, when we step back from the constant analysis, we give our thoughts a chance to settle.
We give them space to breathe.
And it's in that stillness that clarity and new perspectives can emerge.
Sometimes the best thing we can do is nothing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But letting go is tough, especially in our modern world where we're expected to be productive and have all the answers right away.
Instant gratification is the name of the game these days.
And speaking of our modern world, let's talk about social media. It plays a huge role in fueling overthinking.
Oh, absolutely. It's a breeding ground for comparison.
It really is. We're constantly bombarded with these perfect highlight reels of other people's lives.
It's easy to get caught up in that.
So easy. And we start comparing their successes and perfect moments to our own messy realities.
And we always come up short.
We do. We think, wow, they're doing so much better than me. What's wrong with me?
It's a recipe for self-doubt.
It really is. And those constant comparisons create so much pressure, it pushes us further down the rabbit hole of overthinking.
Social media can be a real trap for the mind.
It can.
Yeah.
And in this digital age, overthinking is even more intense. We've got notifications, buzzing emails, pinging social media updates, flooding our screens.
It's information overload.
It really is. It's no wonder we feel overwhelmed and overanalyze every little thing.
Our brains are on overdrive.
They are. Think about someone like Rachel. Every night before bed, she'd scroll through her social media feeds.
The nightly ritual.
A friend announcing a promotion, a celebrity on a yacht, a fitness influencer with perfect abs. It was all there, a constant reminder of what she supposedly lacked.
Oh, that's rough.
It is. By the time she put her phone down, her mind would be racing. Am I doing enough? Why is everyone else happier and more successful? What am I missing?
The classic comparison trap.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But what Rachel eventually realized is that social media only shows a tiny curated fraction of the whole picture.
It's the highlight reel, not the behind the scenes.
Right. Behind every perfect post is a real person with their own struggles and insecurities.
We forget that everyone's fighting their own battles.
We do. So once Rachel started setting boundaries, limiting her screen time, especially before bed, and focusing on her own journey, she noticed a big shift.
Sounds like a good strategy.
The overthinking started to loosen its grip, and she felt more content.
It's amazing what a little digital detox can do.
It really is. Okay, so we've talked about what overthinking is, why we do it, and how social media can make it worse. Now let's get into some practical tips you can use to break free.
Let's get to the good stuff.
First, remember that overcoming overthinking isn't an overnight thing. It's a gradual process, like untangling a really stubborn knot.
It takes time and patience.
Be kind to yourself. It's a journey.
No need to rush the process.
Start small. Take a deep breath when you notice your mind racing. Focus all your attention on one task at a time.
Break it down into manageable steps.
Then when your mind inevitably starts to spiral, because it will happen, we're all human, try to interrupt that cycle.
How do we do that?
Ask yourself, is this thought helpful right now? Is it leading me to a solution or just keeping me stuck?
Love that question.
And then ask yourself, is this thought even true, or is it based on my fears and assumptions?
We often let our fears dictate our reality.
We do. So often our worries are rooted in what-ifs, not facts.
It's about separating fact from fiction.
Exactly. Think about Emma, the college student we talked about earlier. She was super anxious about an exam.
Exams are the worst for overthinking.
The worst. But instead of letting her what-ifs run wild, she asked herself, what can I actually do to prepare?
She shifted her focus to action.
Exactly. And then she focused on reviewing one chapter at a time. That simple shift from worry to action helped her stay grounded and reduced her overthinking.
That's such a great example.
Another really effective tool, and it might sound cheesy, but it works, is gratitude.
Gratitude is powerful.
At the end of each day, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you're grateful for.
Big or small, anything goes.
Anything. A kind gesture, a beautiful sunset, a productive work session. It shifts your focus from what's wrong to what's good.
It's a great way to rewire your brain for positivity.
It really is. And remember, our ocean analogy, life will always have uncertainties. But overthinking doesn't have to be our default response.
We can learn to ride the waves.
Exactly. Like that child with the kite or the surfer, we can learn to navigate our thoughts with grace and resilience.
It's about developing mental flexibility.
And remember, letting go of unproductive thoughts doesn't mean ignoring real problems. It's about trusting yourself.
Trusting that you can handle whatever comes your way.
Exactly. You have the inner resources and capabilities to face challenges without being consumed by them in advance.
It's about having faith in your own resilience.
So I want you, the listener, to think about this. What thoughts are you holding on to too tightly? What would happen if you let them rest like that jar of muddy water? Could you trust yourself to handle life's waves even without all the answers right now?
Those are some powerful questions for self-reflection.
And remember, overthinking isn't a personality flaw, it's a habit you've developed. And like any habit, you can change it.
We have the power to retrain our brains.
We do. Now, we've used a few words and phrases today, so let's quickly go over them just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Good idea. It's always good to clarify.
We talked about a tangle, like when your necklace gets all knotted up in your bag. We mentioned when confidence might falter, like during a presentation. We talked about how thoughts can spiral downwards after bad news. We discussed the feeling of anxiety, that unease before public speaking. We talked about profound insights that offer deep understanding. And of course, overthinking itself, spending way too much time going over things in your mind. We talked about not dwelling on past mistakes, but learning from them. We used the hamster wheel to describe being busy but not making progress. We mentioned indecision when you overanalyze every choice. We discussed the paradox of overthinking, how it can make us feel less in control. And finally, acknowledging your thoughts without judgment.
A good vocabulary helps us understand and manage these complex thoughts and feelings.
It does. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into overthinking today. We hope you found it helpful and insightful.
Our goal was to give you some practical strategies and a deeper understanding of overthinking so you can manage it better.
We encourage you to take some time to think about the tips and vocabulary we've discussed and how they relate to your own experiences.
Reflection is key to personal growth.
Remember, progress takes time, self-compassion, and effort.
It's a journey, not a destination.
So here's a challenge for you this week. Try out some of what you've learned. Take those deep breaths, ask yourself those clarifying questions, and start that gratitude practice. It's all about creating a calmer, more present, and focused state of mind.
Small steps lead to big changes.
And our final thought for you today: Cultivate a deeper sense of self-trust. Trust that you can handle whatever comes your way without needing to solve every problem in your head right now.
Trust in your own strength and resilience.
You've got this.
You do.